Right. So nice to have you here. I see quite a number of you both in Zoom and on YouTube. Adrian, if you can also start your camera, it will be useful maybe. So we have here today with us Adrian Bolboacă, maybe one of the oldest coaches and craftsmen in Romania, and I invited Adrian with us today to share with us what he studied for quite a while already, remote pair programming. Let me check just the technical stuff. Adrian, can you? I'm not sure if I can hear you. Maybe it's on my side. Let me just check this. I think you're still muted. How do I?
Hello.
Yeah, that's it. I can hear you very well. Hello, Adrian.
I'm trying to open also the camera. There we go.
Excellent. All right. Good. Now, what can I say? Remote pair programming, a topic which is very hot today. I've personally discussed with teams that have troubles adopting this and adapting to the current times with practices like remote programming. And Adrian, would you introduce yourself? I think it's better, maybe?
Yeah, sure, of course.
So there you are.
Thank you, Victor. I'm Adrian Bolboacă. I have been doing a lot of stuff around software development. So going back to initially, I started as a programmer. I developed software for various companies, either for products or outsourcing as well. And then I started working more and more with teams. But first, it was just a thing that I liked doing because I was doing this in the community with people that were very passionate about software development and learning new things. And that happened in the beginning in Bucharest, and then I moved to Belgium and France, and I've done it as well in those countries. And after a while, I started traveling quite a lot around Europe. So probably besides, I think, Greece, Norway, and maybe Cyprus, I've been doing especially code retreats in all the other European countries. And I have learned a lot from those because, well, code retreat probably is a thing we'll talk a bit about later in detail. It's an event where people pair program. And I like this a lot. So I started working more and more on technical coaching. So I'm teaching people how to be better at these skills that we talk about. Maybe the skills from the XP, from extreme programming, like testing and test-driven development, and how to make sure that you have good quality requirements and so on. And then I started also continuing with coaching. I started also organizational coaching. So that's more on the side of trying to have people organize better for the same purpose of having better software, better quality software. So I've done coaching on the technical level, with product owners, with Scrum masters, with managers, with top management, with boards, with executives, and so on. And I've learned one thing, that you need to collaborate and you need to pair. So that's why we want to talk just about pairing in the sense of what programmers do, but also in the sense of a wider collaboration between people.
Adrian, just one short thing. Your microphone sounds a bit low. If you can maybe to twist a bit the setup or in...
Yes. Okay. Just a second.
Yes, sure.
I'm in the Mosaic Work Studio where we have a complex setup. So I have a mixer and so on. How is it now?
Not much better. I don't know. Maybe we have a volume. Maybe also it could be on my side, but let me just quickly check. Doesn't. Huh?
Okay.
Just maybe how is it on your side, folks? Just low. Yes.
How is it now?
Maybe a bit better. Can you try to speak some more?
Hello, how are you?
Yes, I think it's a bit better. I think. Yes. Good. Perfect. Thank you. Sorry for the interruption. So yeah.
No, thank you. Thank you for that. It's really important.
Right. Well, remote pair programming. How do you want to do this? Basically, should we have a discussion about this topic and ask different questions, maybe, or?
So, what I have prepared a very short presentation about this, and it will take probably 5 minutes. And then, of course, a lot of questions are on dialogue, and I think that would be a lot more useful for everyone. Is the microphone better now? I've made some changes.
It is a bit better, but now it's a bit, how to put this? How to say this? Reverberant. It's vibrating a bit. Sorry for all this. Maybe just...
How is it now?
I think it's better. Yeah, now it's better.
Yeah.
It's better.
All right.
Thank you.
So of course, the operating system tried to help me and put the wrong microphone.
No, now it's okay. It's okay. It's okay.
Now it should be okay. All right. Good. So if it's okay with you, I would go on with a presentation, a very short one, and then I would wait for your questions. So this is just a warm up for you to prepare your questions, to think about them, write them up in the chat. If you're on YouTube, write them there so that, yeah, we have a lot of interesting questions, and Victor will take care of that. Thank you, Victor. Okay, so I will share again my screen and don't share and present. So I was talking a bit about this. I was talking about the idea of a code treat. The code treat is a format where you have a whole day of programming with people. Typically, it happens in a Saturday with people that you don't necessarily know. And it's a format where you have 6 sessions of 45 minutes. And during each one of those sessions, you get to pair with someone else. So during one day, you have 6 different pairing sessions with 6 different people on 6 different topics, but typically keeping the same problem at hand, but the constraints differ, the person differs. So it's a great learning opportunity through pairing. What I learned from that is that pairing with various people around Europe made me learn very fast. And this is one of the things that I observed, is that if I learn a lot, I can ask a lot more interesting questions or difficult or very important questions regarding software development. Then I understood that for me, for how I am built, I think that learning with software, with pairing is very important. It's not for everyone, of course. I mean, people learn in various ways, but for me, doing something practically with someone else helps me, guides me, and makes me focus on that problem. And I learned a lot in this way, and I still am. After that, I started pairing on other activities. I experimented with facilitating, pair facilitating. So especially starting with code retreats, there were two people facilitating. I was always trying to facilitate with someone else, because in this way you learn how to facilitate better. So you pick up the tools and techniques from the other person while facilitating. I also have done a book writing on the code retreat book with my brother, and we've done that together in a pair. I've done requirements writing in pairs, looking at the problem and trying to come up with a rough idea on how to write requirements, and then gradually improve that with someone else. This led me to learn a lot more about how to write requirements and how to acquire those skills. Also, I have done a lot of pair testing. So with software testers, I have done a lot of programming or testing or both. And that really led me to go deeper into the world of software testing and understanding a lot more what software testing is, until the moment when I started co-organizing the European Testing Conference, a conference focused on testing. Then, or not necessarily after that, but in parallel, I started also on remote pair programming, because I think that it's easier to get someone to pair with you for a couple of hours or 1 hour. The space isn't necessarily an issue anymore, but there are other issues like tools and how to get together, how to get these people to pair with you. So I have an open calendar invites with some slots where people join in and say, hey, I want to pair with you. And then we discuss about the topic. It's either an open source project that I have, or it's a thing that they want to solve on their project, or something different, or we just try something else. We tried techniques together, we tried various ways of pairing together. And very interestingly, when pairing with someone who you don't know, you get up to a very fast to doing something. That I was expecting that, but not that fast. Like, hi, how are you? Let's chat for 5 minutes. And then we deep dive into a topic, and you start learning so much from someone you don't know. And of course, if you pair with people you do know, you will learn. But if you have paired a lot with them, you won't learn that much, because you already have learned most of it. And let's say that your learning is just marginal. But when pairing with people you don't know, you are already seeing and observing things that are very different typically to your own approach. Then I wrote this book, Practical Remote Pair Programming, where I encapsulated all my knowledge about this topic of remote pair programming. And in this book, I started from pair programming and its necessity, and I starting from its need and how we can use it. It's more about the general aspect of pair programming, where it's necessary and where you should use it. Then how it can help, and here again we are discussing about how to learn together as a team, or how to level the knowledge of different teams or different team members in the same team. What's your purpose with remote pair programming or with pair programming when doing it in an organization, in a team? So structuring it in such a way with a very clear focus, because I observe that there are quite often situations when people start pairing, but they don't know what's their focus. So they do a bit of learning, a bit of pairing with testers, a bit of learning how to do test-driven development. And at the end, you get up something, but it's not that big of a deal, that useful at the end. You don't see a big progress towards something. So that's why I think a focus factor is important. Then I'm going into exploring pair programming techniques and styles, and these are things that I either invented or observed with others or from other people. So it's a mixture of different and various things, how to communicate with the pair, how to deal with a pair who's more junior or more senior, how to deal with someone who is extremely novice at programming or extremely stubborn. So all these things are different techniques and styles that you need to try out and see which ones are fit for you as a person, and which are fit for a certain context. And then it's about setup and how to use tools and how to use these styles in a remote and distributed team, and audio and video and source control. All these are problematic. I mean, we don't have the perfect tools yet for remote pair programming. There are some tools. I don't think anything is yet perfect, and I think there is a lot of room for development there, but we work with what we have.
I do have to add one thing here. I have recently spoke to one of the leads of IntelliJ, who is building IntelliJ, and about the Code With Me plugin, which is one of the best tools today for Java development or programming. But they said that it's very new, and they will be continuing to invest in that and develop it. But it's just infant. It's exactly. The whole pandemic got them also surprised. And Visual Studio, I heard that they have a quite good experience with a good plugin.
Exactly. The Visual Studio, to my surprise, because typically Microsoft projects are very narrow to Microsoft tools, but Visual Studio, VS Code, is really good and can work with most of the programming languages, at least with the ones that people use usually, like Java or C# or Python or JavaScript and so on. The only problematic thing remains C++, because I don't think VS Code works that well, especially with some flavors of C++ with embedded. So there you need to use your IDEs, specific IDEs for C++. But that's always the world of C++. It's special and it's different. Otherwise, yes, that's one of the best tools. Code Together works well, but it's, as you said, it's infant. It's not as good as it could be. There are other things like there other tools that help you with these add-ons to the IDE. And again, nothing from this is perfect. But I think it's good enough. It's good enough to make it work. And it's important to stop thinking that remote pair programming means sharing your screen, but you need to have very good access without a lag to the other person's computer. And that's why typically you want an IDE with this type of add-on, like Code Together. There's another one called Fluebits. There are more tools opening up on this, or with Visual Studio. Yeah. So this was all I wanted to share. As I said, it's just a warm-up. So I'm looking forward to your questions or having a dialogue on several.
Yes, perfect. We already have some questions in the chat on the YouTube stream. Don't mind that. I will ask them as they appear.
Thank you.
One question that I also had on my list is how long should a per program round take in a remote setup? How should it be? 20 minutes, 30 minutes, 50 minutes? I know I'm asking for a number, and anytime you ask for a number, it starts with it depends, of course. But like, what works for most teams, maybe?
Yeah, for me, it depends a lot on the person whom I'm talking about. If it's someone who's been very experienced with pairing, you can pair the whole day with breaks as you do in a usual day. The question is if it makes sense, if it helps you, if you should pair the whole day, or if you're just two people there wasting time on a very simple problem. So I try to use pairing, remote pairing, on problems where I know someone will help me, on problems that are more complex, more difficult, error prone, bug prone, difficult to analyze.
Or creative, something that you need to design
yes.
stuff.
If I need to edit half a day some configuration files, I wouldn't be pairing on those. So, but if I'm talking about someone who hasn't done a lot of pair programming, it can be someone very experienced with programming but hasn't done a lot of pair programming. It can be very tiring because it's a very different thing, and our brain needs to get used to it. So I wouldn't recommend pairing more than 1 hour for someone who's new with pair programming and with remote pair programming, because so it's extremely tiring.
All right. And in terms of differences between a physical pair programming and a remote pair programming, what are the most, you already mentioned space. You don't need to have an office prepared for pair programming. And I will also add from my part that you don't really need to be, some people are quite concerned about hygiene. I know it's silly, but it's something that stops quite, I mean, it's one of the most unexpected reasons that people reject pair programming. But now in remote setup, yeah. So besides this, you don't need to be in close contact with someone, but just what are the things besides the tools that we have to put in place? But what do you think changes when you move to remote working? I mean,
the most important thing that changes is that you cannot see the other person. You cannot see their face that easily. You cannot understand more than the other person is saying with words. So you lose some of the communication bandwidth that you have in a physical space. And you need to try to find a way to overcome that. Another problem is having access to the code, to the IDE. So you don't have access to the same code, and you need to have access in a way. So you need to think about how to use source control or this type of IDE add-ons to be able to have access to the code. So sometimes your source control strategy needs to change in order to facilitate remote pair programming. So going back to video, I think what I want to have a good camera and a good microphone, the kind of microphone that you're having now, so that I can hear someone better. Like a headphone like this with this type of microphone wouldn't be good enough, because you don't hear that well. And if you want to pair for 4 or 5 hours a day, you'll get off from your desk and your head will be...
It's okay to have a less quality microphone for short meetings, but if you get to hear it for someone, that's interesting. Okay.
And it's the same with headphones. Like if I have these headphones which are good and comfortable on my ears, and I don't have some pain on my ears.
I personally can't stand for headphones. They squeeze my brain. I can't. I get everyone angry around me because of the sound that I make, but I can't really. But everyone is.
You can have also some loudspeakers if you can do that in your house and you don't annoy your family. But you need to take care about the feedback loop with the microphone. So it works. it can work with loudspeakers as well, but you need to adjust microphone so that you don't have feedback. And so this is very important, and a good HD camera, because you want to see the other person. And my setup is one monitor with the person and one monitor with the code.
So you want to see the face of the person every
Yeah.
time you program with someone. Very good.
Because this bandwidth that I'm losing because I'm not physically present, I want still to have at least as much as I can on a screen, and I want to hear them quite as well in my loudspeakers or headset. And then with the idea of the source control, a typical problem is how do we open it? Who will edit it? And security aspects about that, because we're at distance, and when we open code, it can be a security
Especially
problem.
if you're pairing with strangers, right?
Yes, exactly. But even if you're pairing in your organization, you need a VPN, you need something to keep the code running in a secure way, to open the code in a secure way. So you need to take care about all of these aspects.
What I also heard, the mob plugin is trying to do that. It's creating a separate branch and it commits at the end of your turn. That could actually, but you have to do some sort of a script or something to get things out of your head and keep the focus out. I could imagine a setup in which you screen share indeed, but then when at the end of your turn, the other guy, you're on your side, you push to a branch even if it's not compiling, and then on the other end, the other guy takes the code. There was one question here, but I want you to answer this actually, because someone said that no, it's a question. Does it make sense for developers with a comparable level of experience to pair, or should someone more experienced be sharing their knowledge while pair programming? What do you think about this question? What?
If we look back in older times or even now, any good specialist would know that they can learn something from a peer. You can think about anyone, an architect, an engineer who designs bridges, I don't know, a farmer. I think anyone can learn something from someone else. And it doesn't make sense to say that if you are experienced, you won't learn anything. I think you will learn a lot. But the trick thing is that maybe your ways will be extremely different than the other person's ways. So you might get annoyed. And I think that's good. It's good that you see a lot of people doing things in a very different way, and you can start questioning your ways. But that's difficult. So learning shouldn't always happen like that. For me personally, I learned a lot about attitude from junior programmers and from programming, pairing with junior programmers, because they ask the silly questions which we forgot to ask. That's very important, to keep asking the silly questions, like, why are you doing this? Why are you writing this code?
Yeah, indeed. It happened to me also. Questions that you never you forgot to ask. Exactly, and you realize that you were doing something quite silly. But there are other times in which someone who is very experienced paired with someone who is very slow.
Yeah.
How do you handle this? I've seen people, or imagine one guy with 12 years of experience paired with someone for 1 year of experience. One of them will die, in my opinion. How could you make this work with a huge gap of experience and speed, not more than anything else?
Patience. You exercise patience. That's a virtue as well. So imagine if you cannot have patience with someone who's very slow, could you have patience with explaining to, I don't know, someone from the business why you need that feature done in a certain way, why you need that code to be refactored? Patience is important, and explaining things in a low voice to people who are slow is important. And then also, I think you can exercise feedback, giving feedback. How would you say someone who's very slow at typing that they should learn how to type faster, and that makes them extremely slow? It can be a skill that's maybe considered very simple, too simple, but which can make their life a lot better and their professional life a lot better. So there you go. You can do so many things about you, because these are things about you, giving feedback and having patience.
I pledge guilty on this one also. It's hard to me to. I mean, I literally felt I was losing time sometimes, but
Yeah.
perhaps it's not a goal to pair with that junior for 8 hours a day, right?
Of course.
Perhaps it's a goal just to pair enough to
Yes.
level him up a bit, and then slowly over time
Yeah.
increase the so patience.
So 8 hours per day is a lot.
Yep.
I would say 8 hours per day is I wouldn't go more than 6, even with
Six we also managed to do. 8
it's
is
extremely important. So 6 is the top, and with 6 I would pair probably with people on projects that are very important now, where we need speed and accuracy and low defect rate. But if you have this purpose of learning someone else, I think you should take it slow. You should take it slow, 1 hour per day, or 2 to 3 hours per week, distribute it evenly, and take it slow, and then try to see what they can improve, get feedback. I mean, you can accept that or try to work with someone who's very slow for 45 minutes or an hour. That's the thing that I request, not more than that.
Yeah, interesting. All right. Another thing from the chat of this time, it has to do with what you mentioned when you talked about your book, discussing, pairing with someone who is stubborn.
Yeah.
Who is very keen on his or her opinion without really solid reason. And let me ask you that. I mean, I have my own ideas, but how do you handle that? How do you handle that? So you have someone with you in a pair, and he has strong opinions about things that you can prove that are wrong, oftentimes. How do you do it?
I will give you an example from a code retreat I facilitated, I don't know, 6-7 years ago. I was in Belgium, and the group was not big, not small, 14-15 people. There was one guy who was new at this code retreat, and he said in the beginning, when we have a kind of a circle and we introduced ourselves, he said, I came here I know we're doing Conway's Game of Life. I know this problem. I found the solution home, and that's the only thing I will pair on. And then she paired with someone, he paired with someone else, and before lunch, the third session, I paired with him, because he was he was annoying everybody on that. So I paired with him. The solution. So he said that there cannot be another solution because I found it and it's the best one. Literally, that's what he said.
But he forgot the point. We were there to learn, not to find the solution.
Yeah. Anyway, so he was doing the same movements with everybody around his solution, the only one. And I started pairing with him and trying to come up with different angles. Of course, having the experience of knowing how I could make him stumble on his best solution, how to show him that there can be situations where his solution may not work, because Conway's Game of Life is an automaton, and you can use it, in fact, for several ways, and it has it's a Turing machine, so you can use it for a lot of things. And he was very difficult to manage, and I needed to be very calm and trying to do this. And he was, no, this is the solution. This is what you do. Yes, it's a very good solution. Now think about this context, this situation. In this situation, if you have that, would this work? And then I started introducing more and more of these ideas, and he started doubting a bit. He left after lunch, and 6 months later, he came back, and he was a different person. He said, oh, yeah, hello, I came here to learn, and yeah, and let's do something else. And he was a lot more open. So my answer is, you need to be extremely calm, extremely precise in very clear reasons why every one of these things could be wrong. I'm not saying that that's wrong, because maybe it makes sense, but I want to start having a dialogue. See, you are doing this, and look, I think it works here, but it doesn't work here. What do you think? And we start having this dialogue. Sure, and of course, maybe you'll have a very strong opinion or a very abrupt answer or even rude, but you need to stay calm, stay focused on trying to have this dialogue based on facts, not on opinions, not on emotions.
Yeah.
And little by little, I think you can go somewhere. You can make that person open. We also need to think that people who are very stubborn typically are stubborn of several reasons. They either are extremely good at what they're doing, extremely good professional, and no one challenges their authority in their team or in their context.
And they grow. So
exactly.
Full of themselves. Yes.
Exactly. So they have a very big ego. And those are very people with a lot of value. And maybe what you need to learn is why they are there. And you can also learn a lot from them, but maybe try more to change their attitude, to be just more open and listen more. Not ever question.
Convincing them is not the goal, basically. It's more important to keep them as a friend. And
exactly.
You might actually resign your point and say, okay, do your stuff. You are basically providing a lot of value, more than I do. To some extent.
It could be, but I'm typically with these type of people, I'm trying just to open them to see that it's not useful for them or for anyone in the team to be stubborn, but to listen more. Just to listen more. And that's all I try to do. Some other times people are stubborn because they are afraid. They are afraid that they might be wrong. So this is the way we go like that. Yeah. And hey, everybody's wrong at some point. We work in an environment where we do mistakes, and it's normal to do mistakes. So for this context, I try to give examples of my mistakes, of what I have been doing in the past, and give them the faith that they can do mistakes as well, and it's not a big issue. So you need to understand with stubborn people the reason of being stubborn. Why they are like that? And calmness, opening up to dialogue, being friendly, taking a break together, going away from the computer, taking a walk. These are a lot more useful than trying to be stubborn as well.
One interesting question, pushing things even further than this. Petty asks, and I also heard of companies who were working before COVID, who were working full-time mob programming, remote mob programming.
Yeah.
And at first I was like, what do you mean? We are 4 guys on the same screen. I mean, how about time efficiency, right? No, probably you have to have a certain kind of problem to tackle such gear with such a setup, because you can turn down mountains with 4 people thinking at the same problem. I mean, you have super strong power horse machine in there. But have you seen, are there any tricks in mob remote programming? I mean, pushing, I mean, more than two, let's say 3 people. Any tricks on that? Is this a trend? Is this something we should go for? Or is it just a niche? How do you see this?
It's mob programming has been there for a while, and I think it is extremely useful as a tool, extremely complex, solving complex problems. And I can give you some examples where a team made up of more than 4 people, like 7, 10, or even people from more teams, needed something like a month and a half solving a problem. And then putting them together in a room made them solve it in 6 hours. Just because of the organizational ping pong, and I gave you that, this is not good.
Breaking the silos, basically.
Breaking the silos, but also breaking the typical checking in the code and then trying to review it. Someone needs to review it. It's not good. Ping pong. Then the architect says, no, you shouldn't do that. Go back. Then security says, no, you shouldn't do that. Go back. So it's all of those, all that time lost into all of these things. So then if you put everybody in a room, if your purpose is to deliver fast in a problem like that where you require a lot of people, I think that's where mob programming becomes extremely powerful. Mm-hmm. Of course, you can use it with other purposes, like trying to learn from each other, trying to level knowledge, trying to open people more to some other tools, techniques, practices, like testing, like test-driven development, like DevOps, like looking more on security, so on. And with remote, I think now there's this very good tool, mob.sh, who is trying to solve this problem of remote tooling, which is very nice and helps a lot. I think remote mobbing is a bit the same with the remote pair programming, but just that more people. I would still need a monitor with my mob and the monitor with the code because I want to see them.
I read 2 things between the lines, that people have to be somewhat of different area of expertise. Having 7 people with the same profile might not help as much as having like a tester, an analyst, and security guy, and an owner and an architect. It could be maybe more productive because the communication is faster. That's learned. And secondly, I also think that it can't. I mean, remote mobbing might be the best for short time, not 1 month. Maybe for some focused task, let's do this. Or
I know organizations that work on long term as well, like that. Mm-hmm. With this purpose of they want to deliver fast. So if you look at an organization, you can optimize the organization from 2 points of view. And your first remark was on time management. So you can optimize the time that we use or optimize the delivery. If you put everyone's time is very valuable individually, then you'll end up having a lot of cycles going back and forth, and you'll deliver to the customer in weeks, months, or many months. If you want to optimize delivery, then individual time doesn't make sense to be measured anymore. And you either go very extreme in one direction or in the other direction. Having personal time valued, that's typical project management, classical project management approach, where you want to have 100% tasks for every member of the team. And the mobbing always is completely opposite, where you don't care about that. You just care about delivering daily something important to the client. Or you can be somewhere in the middle. So how much mobbing you do, it depends on how you want to optimize in between these two. And I think each organization needs to find their balance, depending on their topics, how complex they are, how difficult they are, what people they have, what skills they have, what's the purpose of these meetings, and so on. So I know organizations that have people who are extremely skilled, but with teams where you don't see these barriers of specialization anymore. I mean, you know that someone was a tester, but now can do programming and analysis and security as well. And someone was a programmer in the beginning, but now he's doing also testing and automation and DevOps. And you put these people together, and they are together as a whole, as a team, as a cross-functional team of people who can work in a mob. And of course, I know testing, but you're a lot better than me. So when we do something and we need to test, I will ask you, how should you do that in the mob? If I ask you in the mob, it's a lot faster. It's almost immediate feedback rather than doing it on my own, asking you to come and pair with me, or giving you something, a task in Jira, and then 2 weeks later coming back.
Yeah,
it depends on the speed of delivery.
Yeah. So speed of delivery versus the percentage of being used every minute of your time. Yeah, makes perfect sense. It's a trade-off. You should decide where you are as a company.
Exactly. Yeah.
But mobbing may not be something very common for most of us. So maybe a lot more question, which is a lot more close to most things I know. How about pairing with people that won't communicate a lot, like introverts, or like they are shy, or they can't argue even though they have a valuable opinion? Maybe they are worried their opinion might be wrong, or they are somehow shy. How do you encourage them to communicate? That's a very good question. I've seen people, brilliant people, who just wouldn't express, wouldn't.
Yeah. I paired with many people like that, and I think you need to give them time to open up. I could say that it's a kind of like a trauma, because we as a society prefer people who are extroverts. So introverts, there's a very good book on that called Quiet by Susan Cain.
Quiet.
Who she is an introvert, and she thought that she should be an extrovert because that's how society pushed her, and she started working as an executive in finance and so on. And then she quit and went on psychology and made this very big study, I think around 10 or 15 years, around introverts. And then she wrote this book.
Very cool. And it might also be due to the fact that developers are not the most extrovert people in the society today.
Yeah, but still, studies show that I cannot quote the exact study, but as I remember, studies show that you have around 40 to 45% extroverts in a software development team. Of course, you have more introverts in a software development team than you'd have in I don't know, in a board, as board members, executives in a team where probably you have 95% extroverts, but you still have a lot of them. And the problem is that these new tools that Agile promotes, like meetups, having daily stand-ups, planning, all these things are draining energy, because an introvert doesn't mean that you're shy. You should all look on these terms and see that they are. It consumes
you energy when you speak to people. Yes.
Yeah. So introvert means that other people consume your energy from interactions, while extroverts gain energy through interaction. And that's where you need to learn how to work with introverts.
And look, another question related to that. What do you do if during a pair programming session, you feel that the counterpart is getting burned, is getting exhausted? Well, it's better to take a break, right? Take a break, maybe even end and resume the next day, probably.
Exactly. It means that it's a feedback for both of you that you've worked for too long. The next time you should take a break 10 minutes before.
Earlier.
I typically see working in a pair or in a mob in 40-45 minute maximum sessions. With novice programmers, in 25-minute sessions.
Yeah, that's exactly what that's exactly my numbers also when I'm exactly yeah. Cool.
And with introverts, going back to that, I think you need to understand them that they need time and to express, more time to express. There's these studies showing that an introvert will need 7 seconds before opening their mouth, 7 seconds of silence before opening their mouth, while an extrovert needs less than 1 second. So yes, so if you want to hear someone, an introvert's opinion, ask and wait for 7 seconds.
1, 2, 3. No. Oh my God, I need to put a counter on the screen. Like, shut up. Wow. 7
That's
seconds.
the extreme, right? So up to 7 seconds.
To get all the answers in a group, perhaps 7 seconds should be the.
So that's why that's an exercise I do in groups, especially. Well, I was doing that with facilitating bigger groups. I was asking things and waiting. And you'll see extroverts answering the first second. And then I try to ask the other people who didn't answer anything, didn't talk anything, and try to look at them and try them to answer. And you'll see that introverts will take 2, 3, 4 seconds to speak, only if no one else spoke before, because if someone else spoke before, they won't speak.
They will be shadowed. Then they'll be like, I felt that in my teams also. Some people were feeling marginalized. Were feeling like
exactly. So this transforms into a kind of a trauma on the long run, because we as a society prefer extroverts, and because extroverts speak very fast and they are outgoing, then you want to have the introverts in a way to ask them directly and wait for their answer.
Petty also continued asking, do you talk about these topics in your book also?
No, because it's something else. I'm
Psychology.
not talking about introverts. No. That's something else. That's more of a coaching topic, I think.
Okay. And look,
yeah, please. It's about shy people. Again, people are typically shy because they fear your person. They fear that you are a lot more experienced, and that's why they are shy. Shy people it's not necessarily introvert or extrovert. Maybe it's someone that's extremely extrovert and very shy in front of you because they consider them as a better programmer and they don't want to say something stupid. So you need to get
barrier.
friendly.
That barrier of that, you need to turn down that barrier.
Mm-hmm.
What I try to do in my sessions of training is like doing a lot of jokes, making fun of myself, doing silly mistakes.
Yeah.
Deliberate silly mistakes and waiting for them to get that mistake. I mean, all sorts of that to prove to get yourself down from the pedestal that they might have put you in. So you always should attack that one. But there is the reverse of that. What if you are suffering from imposter syndrome? So
everybody is suffering from imposter syndrome, right? Yeah, that's a more difficult topic because it has to do a lot with looking at yourself, looking in the mirror and looking at yourself.
Is always hard. Huh?
Yeah, and that's always hard. I think it's a lot harder. And you need to really understand if you have done all that you have done, or you know all you know because of your work, and stop thinking that, hey, it was just a happening. It happened like that just because of fate. And so it's more of a thing that it has to do more with psychology and with analyzing yourself.
To quote from TDD, fake it till you make it. Huh?
Yeah, I mean, I know people who are extraordinary, and when I talk with them, and people who wrote books, and people we know from the community, and when you talk to them in person, one-on-one, they are extremely shy, and they still consider themselves as they don't know that much, and so really big names. So I think the more you are well known, the more you suffer from the imposter syndrome.
The more you know, how less you know.
That's probably the reason. But this shouldn't stop you from acknowledging what you know and what you have done and celebrating what you know.
Good stuff. Good stuff. Very good ideas here. A lot of psychology, the most challenging part of a senior developer life, right? How to work with people.
Yes. But there are workshops, there are books on that. I would recommend, first of all, Nonviolent Communication by Marshall Rosenberg, which is an old book written and extremely useful. But there are a lot of books on how to communicate. There are workshops on that. It's not a thing that I'm specialized in. I'm passionate about that. I think you need to know all these things to be a good trainer, to be a good coach, to be a good pair. But it's a thing to study.
Let me turn the discussion back to back to our comfort zone. So,
Yeah.
pair programming. In Romania, at least, it's not a habit.
Mhm.
I don't know, less than 25% of the teams that I work with have ever tried pair programming. The rest are just like, what? What's that?
Yes.
Two monkeys at the same keyboard? What do you mean? How do you convince your boss? So you are not doing, imagine you're working in a corporation, you are being headcounted, how many people are working, okay?
Yeah.
How can you, I don't know, convince your boss to let you pair programming? How? I have my own perspectives, but I want to hear yours. How do you do it? What would you recommend?
I think we tend to pair naturally when we have a problem. So when that's the first, which I call impromptu pairing, wherein you have a problem and you go to someone who you know experience from your team or from someone else's team, and you go and say, look, I have this, can you help me? And then you sit together in front of the computer and then you solve it. There you go, you paired. Did anyone I don't know, fire you? Did anyone do anything bad? I don't think so, because you were there to solve a problem. You thought about it. You couldn't do it yourself. You asked for help, and someone helped you. You solved the problem faster than looking at it for 3 days without having a solution. Now, what if you do more of that? Who would be annoyed? Who would stop you if you do more than that? If the results are showing you solve problems faster, you have better code quality, I don't think that would be the issue.
Start from opportunistic occasions. Start from. We had that pairing, that informal pairing yesterday. Let's acknowledge that and okay. So we spent 2 hours today. Hey boss, we spent 2 hours today, and we did a good job. Okay, and use that as a tool, basically.
Exactly, and stop thinking that personal time equals money, because quite often, if you're stuck, you don't do anything, then waste time. So it's important to ask for help. That's why we have specialists. That's why we have colleagues. We need to help each other. We need to collaborate. Now, of course, if you do a lot more than that, and if you have a very stubborn project manager in your organization, say, what did you do there? How should I put this time on you?
In the time sheet.
Worked on this.
Time sheet. Yes.
Exactly. I worked on that. Now, if you go a bit further away, and you can see that your organization is not that strict on timesheets and things like that. What helps is trying to have these specialists go and pair with people. So
like internal coaches.
People, not necessarily. So the experience, the senior programmers shouldn't have planned all of their time in their timesheets.
Very good point. Very good point.
But maybe half of the time, or 60% of the time, and the rest would be just going around pairing with other people or trying to fix their issues, because what you're doing in that moment is not only going faster as a team, but also making the other members of the team learn more and growing the whole team. Because And I'm writing about this in the book as well. This is a thing that Chris Matz calls personal fluency, I think, or something like that, where he says if you're keeping the most experienced person busy, then the rest of the team won't be able to learn, and you will go extremely slow. You should do the reverse. The most experienced person shouldn't have any task and should help the others do those tasks, even the most difficult ones, with the most experienced person, and they will be able to learn very fast. And in 6 months, in 9 months, you'll have a team that is a lot faster and will deliver a lot more. You can double or even triple the speed of the team in this manner. But that means no more pushing from project managers, pushing. You should do that because I know you and you're good.
Typically, people that are very good are self-motivating somehow, and you don't really need to push them that hard.
No, but you can go to push tasks to them personally, rather to push tasks to the team. That's what I meant.
So shield them in a sense.
Yes.
Interesting.
And stop giving tasks to people and give tasks to the teams. And in that moment, the team can self-organize in such a way. And in the beginning, they will deliver less, but after a while, they will deliver a lot more. And they will be a lot happier.
Mm-hmm. Wow, very, very, very good stuff. So don't fully book with tasks the most experienced people in your teams, or maybe on your development department. Try to have Cavalry available to help people out. Very good, very good. One curiosity that I had, is there any way, I mean, you are pair programming on a problem. Typically, in case you aren't fully pair programming all the day, or maybe in case you aren't assigned tasks to solve in a pair, typically one of the folks involved in the pair will have more functional knowledge about the problem to be solved. Would have been studied the problem more. Then when the MVT comes in, he's a bit it's not fair. Are there any ways to, I mean, what I see happening is that the MVT will just die, shut down.
Mm-hmm.
You know? Are there any ways in which you can somehow mitigate that? How can you maybe, I don't know, study the problem up front, do a little prep work, do a little, present a diagram? What are the tricks that you can do to get the MVT of opportunistic pair programming up to speed as fast as possible?
Yeah, there are so many ways of doing that. Let's say the most collaborative would be that all the analysis is done by the team and not by one person, in a sense that, okay, you have a person working on that, but because you have daily meetings, you can discuss after the daily meetings what you have worked on, the analysis of that thing, and present it to the others. So you have a constant pace of aligning knowledge. Another thing that you could do is, because you know you will pair on that thing, make the analysis together. Don't have one person, but two people doing also the analysis. So you go back to pair analysis, not pair programming. Another thing is, as you said, document in a way that analysis and give it with a bit of time up front so that the other knows. And another way is that the person who is invited will write the code, will be the driver. And
the strong side, what's that called? The strong side pairing or something?
No, that's a way of communicating as well. It's not necessarily to have a strong style pairing, but you just put the person who knows less there, and there's a very good reason, because that person doesn't know anything about your analysis, and you will explain, and when you will explain, probably that person will be able to find mistakes in your analysis, or find loops, find holes, find things that you forgot about. So that's a kind of, you start pairing, but you also review the analysis in
Very
the
good.
meantime.
So you are forced to explain that guy what to write at the
Yeah.
beginning. You have to.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes. Yeah.
Good. There are still questions. It's been
Sure.
1 hour already, so just to know. One question that's interesting. So imagine two programmers are arguing, negotiating or something during their arguing about a problem. Is it better to ask another colleague to solve it, like a judge, or how should the negotiation happen? Imagine two very stubborn, two stubborn people, not a stubborn guy and you, but two stubborn people.
Yeah, of course, this happens. I've solved this in several ways. This is the typical approach, right? You go to the team leader or whoever is the informal leader of that topic and say, well, what do you think? Another thing is I tried this and it works very well with some teams. Put everyone in a room, the whole team, with a projector, or well, now we're remote, the virtual room, and show the code and present the two options, and then
Both.
let everyone criticize those two options. This is good because, this isn't good because, this is good because. So try to find pluses and minuses to both the options, and then let the team decide, either by voting or by consensus.
This also is a trick to convince the stubborn by exposing them to social pressure, right? Showing that all the team has an opinion. It's not just you.
Yeah. I mean, you could put it like that, but I wouldn't want to make them annoyed that their solution wasn't there. That wouldn't be a good outcome, to make them feel annoyed that, hey, I had a good idea and they didn't let me do it. I think most of it,
I guess.
yeah, okay. More I would prefer to have a consensus decision, and I would prefer to have very clear reasons why that is good and that wasn't good, and everyone has to learn from that.
Exactly, focusing on the learning, not on the decision making. Yes,
exactly.
Excellent. One next question: are there any anti-patterns for pair programming that can ruin everything? Any anti-patterns?
Yeah, there are many anti-patterns with the classical pair programming, where you're on the same desk. Typically, the biggest issue is when there's like, I'm here working here and my pair is here and barely sees the screen. So the first thing is put the keyboard in the middle, put the screen in the middle.
Or maybe two keyboards, I've seen. Yeah.
Yes, or two screens for everyone, because you mentioned hygiene in the beginning. I know people who have their own keyboard, their own mouse, although I don't know who uses mouse in programming. So their own keyboards, and they carry them, plug them in, there you go, you work with them. But have the screen in the middle. That's one anti-pattern. Another anti-pattern, quite frequent, is that we start coding. You need to think a bit.
We don't think. We discuss the problem.
Yeah, think a bit. What are we doing? Why are we doing? What are our options?
The purpose is to talk to each other in the end, right?
Yeah, exactly. Talk about the problem, various solutions. What do you think about that?
Maybe sketch in a PowerPoint. Nowadays, there is a thing from Google. How do you call it? Joomla. It's like a whiteboard that you can share.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, any ways of visual communication, drawing diagrams, writing options in a notepad or something. There are so many things. So don't start immediately to code. Think a bit about what you're doing. So I think those are probably the things that I see most often happening as anti-patterns. There are a lot of them, very small ones, to like how you communicate, if you don't let the other person speak, or you are way too aggressive. So there are a lot of things about communication that happen here, and they become very obvious in a pair programming.
is it an idea to have someone overlook the pair program session, especially now remote? You can actually, like the lead watching 5 minutes of the pair programming session to give some more hints afterwards? Or
I do recommend in my book, and I do recommend also, well, always when you start, if you want to start an organizational transformation and you use pair programming with everyone, I recommend a technical coach starting off with that, either internal or external technical coach who will guide everyone until they become proficient enough so they stay on their feet. So that is a good idea, I think, for beginner pair programmers, not at any skill of programming, but people who are beginning pair programming.
And I think the last question I see over there, if I forget one, please resend it. But one last question: do you? It was a question from Razvan. Do you plan to turn back with new videos on your YouTube channel? By the way, they were very helpful for refactoring tips.
Thank you so much. I was very busy with writing the book, with clients. I got very tired. It's not easy to do them, and I stopped. I don't plan, maybe towards the end of this year, but I don't plan a lot on that. I also have been working a lot on recording workshops. So on Mosaic Works, we started the Craft Academy. So that took a lot of time, where we have some learning programs that are video and interactive. So that's why I would like to have maybe another series, because I have a series on TDD as if you meant it. I have a series on refactoring legacy code. But if I would start with some other series, some other topic. I'm still searching for that. So if you have ideas, please tweet me or give me an email or something to tell me what would be interesting.
I just pasted your blog on the chat everywhere. So maybe if you can, we can end this with maybe some slides from you with your contact details. And if there are any questions, maybe share them now. Yeah. If there's anything that you want to mention also, I don't know.
Well,
yeah.
I have some, I have three things. I like to close up with what's next.
Action points. Yes.
Yes.
If you can share,
So,
yeah. That's it.
First of all, what's next? What I think would be next is, first of all, try to start pairing your organization. As I mentioned, just in small iterations, when you need to, don't make a big fuss of it. Just, work with people in your organization and see how it works out for you. I also, that's for my experience, that's what I've done. Pair with friends or from other organizations, people who are also programmers, and maybe on side projects, on pet projects, on coding katas, on small problems. I don't know, anything where you could work together. I think the problem itself isn't that important. It's more important what you learn from the others. And then if you are okay with that, try to pair with unknown people. Now, remote is a bit more complicated. There used to be events like code retreats or coding dojos or mob programming sessions where you could work with other people. Then I would recommend you to try to read the book that I wrote, Practical Remote Pair Programming, where you could learn on also how to implement this in your organization, but also how to use it well. Then try to improve after you've done all that, try to improve your flow and see where it's necessary to use pair programming, because it's not for everything. Pair programming shouldn't be used always for everything, for everyone. you should see where it's appropriate, where it's helpful in your context and where it's not. I know some typical contexts where it's not useful, especially with simple tasks, but you should find yourself in your organization, also specific areas. And then what is very important for me is to pair with people from other specializations, because I try to make them, no, I try to learn from them and to understand from them how they work and is their viewpoint. I really like pairing with testers, for example. They always give me another insight.
Perspective, yes, yes. And again, the focus is communication, right? It's not that writing code.
Exactly. The purpose is communication, but also widening your perception about the problem. Because when you start coding and you have paired with testers, with analysts, with people from operation, with security experts, you start thinking of all of these, and all those experiences are within you, and you start coding a lot better, trying to take all these views into account when coding.
And I think nothing compares to an experience talking to someone. You could have read the security document, but nothing compares to a security guy telling you not to do that.
Yeah.
It's completely different.
Yes, yes. And it's a context. You learned it by doing it, and then it remains there stuck in your head.
By human interaction, basically, yeah.
Exactly. And you mentioned some contacts. This is my blog, blog.adrianbolboacă.ro, my name. I have a YouTube channel with things. I didn't publish many things, as you saw. I think Design Work Smart channel from Mosaic Works. I have some videos there. More nowadays, I'm producing videos, and Alex, my brother, is our MC, who is having a lot of very interesting conversations with people from software development, or not necessarily, but they're long format discussions. And that's my email address and or Twitter, and you can follow up on that whenever you want. Ask me anything.
Good. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Adrian. Maybe hope to see you another time. Who knows?
Sure, sure.
Good luck.
Of course.
Take care. Take care, all of you.
Thank you.
And yeah, see you next time. Thanks.
See you. Bye.
Bye-bye.